A lot of times we are sort of stalwarts about like, this is how it needs to be done. And like, if you listen, listening is the greatest tool for creating.
Hello and welcome to Coffee with Mr. IoT. My name is Robert Schmidt. I'm Deloitte's Chief IoT Technologist, and today my guest is Eric Wright. You are the
Technology evangelist.
Technology evangelist. I'm so sorry.
All good.
At Turbonomic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I think I'm the last holder of the title evangelist. Everyone's become an advocate or a developer relations. So I'm holding out hope. Folks like yourself, Guy Kawasaki, the folks that I've watched come out through. I'm hanging on that I haven't quite made the jump to my next title yet.
Well, I have to say that you mentioned me in one sentence with Guy Kawasaki is an honor. Thank you for that. I don't think I'm there yet, but anyhow. So how does someone become an evangelist? What got you to where you are, and what does Turbonomic do?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I actually was in the industry. I worked as a systems and enterprise architect for years across a couple of financial firms. I worked at Raymond James and Sun Life and a lot of other places before that. I've storied years behind these darkened eyes of years in data centers. And so coming from there, I began blogging. And through blogging and trying to be very strong in the technology community to kind of expand my knowledge, I ended up meeting a lot of folks, and then through that ended up discovering it was then VM Turbo, now it's Turbonomic, and they brought me into the firm to be able to do kind of this idea of tech evangelist and stay community facing, and very much look to the industry, to what's coming, and be able to bring that back into how our platform can actually do things, and then also tell good customer stories, which, as you're very aware, what we do in technology is incredible. But it's incredible in different ways to different people. And so I can have that very distinct and technical conversation, but then also talk about the difference between doing something in the data center, like talking about now I can bring the cloud to my data center, and that's exciting. But what I can do with it is I can enable a company like Cochlear to allow a 2-year-old girl to hear her mother's voice for the first time. And that's the difference in how we tell the story of, we have to do that thing that enables something that's greater and more amazing. And so I've been proud to be able to learn those stories from customers and folks in the community, and then bring those and glue those two things together. So I have the dream job in that. And my company, it's application resource management. And so making sure that applications are getting the resources they need continuously and automatically on whether it's cloud or on premises. We used to call it legacy. Now I say you call it legacy, I call it production. But so it's fun. And then again, and you've probably sort of seen this as well, staying very, very active in listening. As much as I speak for a living, I also have to spend much more time very actively in hearing what's going on and watching what you and other folks are doing, and kind of marking what's coming. Because if we just stay very myopic and put the blinders on to just the things that are directly in front of us, it's easy to forget that there may be other folks that are doing things that are similar to what we need to do, and maybe they've walked the path before us and they can save us some time.
So you typically sit on the other side of this. Typically you get to ask the questions. You have your own podcast.
Yeah.
What's the name of that?
Yeah, so that's the other thing too. I'm most widely known as Disco Posse, which is my Twitter handle.
How did you come up with that name?
I was in a variety of bands as a youth, and one of them we did these very odd, very heavy covers. I play guitar, and so I play a 7-string guitar, so these very dark, heavy covers of disco songs is one of the bands we did. And so when I was searching for email addresses back in the early days when you'd change providers and lose email, I just took the domain and then started blogging on it. And ultimately what happened was it just naturally became more associated. Also, Eric Wright is Easy E. And there's a Canadian mystery author named Eric Wright, also an NFL football player. So no SEO opportunity at all for me in there. So Disco Posse, if you search that, I'm everywhere.
Okay, well, it's great to have you. I'm curious, when someone says evangelist, what comes to mind for me is that there's some topics that you'd be really passionate about, or some topics that today you really feel like need to be out more than they are. What are one or two of those things that you feel like you're really passionate about evangelizing? What are people missing today? What opportunities that you really feel like we got to talk more about as tech evangelists?
That's a great question. And I think the people side, it sounds like such a cheesy answer, right? The people as part of the technology story, but it really is as forward thinking as any software or platform or person could be. The most difficult thing is bringing the wider audience with that vision and carrying it through to execution. And so I find just the digital transformation is this sort of awful buzzword that's been attached.
Why
to
is it
things.
awful?
Well, more that it's great, but it's gotten an awful connotation because people don't really know what it means, and they see it as this sort of, like oh great, you're going to bring in a big five consulting firm, and then I don't know what's actually going to. They lose track of what it really means, and that's like at the start I said about bringing the story home to we're using technology to do something amazing, and so how can we incent people to do amazing things and bring themselves forward? And so I find that I love the transformation story. Cloud is a practice. It's not a place. And containerization, also same kind of thing. As we see all these new technologies come in, the way that we consume them and bring people into this next generation, because it's very difficult, right? If you watch somebody who's done something the same way for such a lengthy period of time, and then you hear about Docker and stories of these amazing unicorn companies, and yet to the broader audience and the greater population, it's never going to actually hit their radar because it's just not. They don't look for it. Folks like yourself and many others in the industry, we purposefully are chasing what's potentially coming so we can be ready when it actually arrives. So I love getting people closer to what's coming and helping them to be comfortable that it's going to be okay. In a way, like how do I give people the knowledge and confidence to take on a new technology, take on a new practice, a methodology, DevOps and stuff like that. Again, it's these words and phrases that have been either co-opted with negative things or just people don't really know what it means for them. And so I just love having people suddenly go, aha. Like I've done something amazing, and it's this trigger, as Simon Sinek would say, like you feel this synaptic response of dopamine that's like, oh my goodness, this is good. And then, all right, let's do it again, and really pull people through that experience.
Yeah, the emotional connection. I mean, many people talk about this. Its value is great, money is great, but you got to emotionally connect to what you do,
right,
to people so that they really like it. You used an interesting word. You said we're chasing after what's the next thing. So if I'd ask you the same question, what do you evangelize on, or what are you chasing today? Sort of like, what do you think is the next thing that we're looking forward to?
It's a good question.
Maybe you saw something here at reInvent, the AWS conference.
Yeah, it's.
Is it quantum?
Quantum is going to have significant impact. My favorite thing to sort of mark is that technologies that are going to be the most significant will be the least understood and the least direct in how they're consumed and used. So quantum will have incredible impacts, just as AI and machine learning. But to most people in technology, they don't actually touch it, but the things they use touch it. And so effectively we are, was it the Halt and Catch Fire, one of the famous phrases from that show, it says, it's not the thing, it's the thing that enables the thing. And so ML and quantum are enabling stuff that ultimately can change the face of healthcare and the way that we as a society can behave. It also, challengingly, can unlock and open our eyes to things that maybe we didn't necessarily realize were as difficult. We talk about obviously things like diversity and we, and I say we as like this, most folks that are watching this may be from a North American audience. I obviously, and you may have like a more dominant North American, potentially European audience, but look at the global population. And so who is touching technology directly? So
this human impact we have with technology.
We can have a global impact with things that we can do, and whether it's that classic sort of think globally, act locally. So, but definitely quantum, massive. Machine learning becoming more accessible to people is going to change the way that we begin to build platforms, and we'll see that effect probably in 10 years. It will take a while before it really comes to full fruition, I think.
So you think machine learning is still 10 years away?
To companies that are directly creating things with it, and more like it's out there, and it is already driving changes in the way that we do things. And again, my favorite thing, I'm a student of behavioral psychology. Okay. And so I always tell people, I said, how do you write great software? I said, read Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Like that's the stuff you need to read, because how do people behave? And if we can use software to map and then incent good behaviors and tap into the things that can help to move people. And like I said, that's that aha, you can light up dopamine for somebody. You will bring them to that next phase. The other one is just IoT. Obviously, being Mr. IoT, you're acutely aware of some of those things, and the fact that more people are using their phone to reach most of their technology feed than anything else. We spend more time with our computer in our pocket than we do in front of our desk. Another thing, I'm encouraging more developers to think differently about how they build things. So I found the best developers that I've met typically also have had some kind of human computer interaction courses. They've taken behavioral psychology, like just tap into the way that people will use the thing. And a lot of times we are sort of stalwarts about like, this is how it needs to be done. And like, if you listening is the greatest tool for creating.
So I'm curious, actually, I threw out the quantum computing. And to be honest, I'd love to hear what's your definition of where's quantum computing going to make an impact for people? I can talk about cloud and IoT for a long, long time. Yeah. I tell you, if you ask me about quantum, it'd be a very short conversation. So I'd be curious what you think it's going to mean for us, and how far out is it really for useful work?
Just the fact that the acceleration of computation it's massive, right? You think about what we did with enabling just GPU to be able to do traditional compute and doing algorithmic and machine learning. So now to take quantum, and it is beyond exponential, right? Let's say, well, it literally is exponential, but in fact, I was at an IBM conference, and that was they said, we're using, we're seeing exponential growth in what it is. And they said, and we mean literally exponential, like as you look at the curve, we use the word so easily, but it is, to be able to exponentially accelerate the ability to turn data into something that's now measurable and usable, that can then feed back into a system. And I'm a big fan of systemizing many things. And it's funny, you look at nature, my favorite thing to watch is people that say like, oh, it's amazing. Like you look at honeybees, they create this beautiful honeycomb. And yet it's mathematic the way they do it. It's geometric. I'm like, I think you've actually got that backwards. We've figured out how nature works by creating geometry and creating mathematics. It's not the other way around. There's this odd thing of this human arrogance that we've figured it out and now nature's catching up. Like now we're just along for the ride. The earth will shake us off the back, and it'll be having a great old time when we're gone.
So we're taking nature and creating models out of that. And right. Someone said to me, models are fundamentally always wrong because it's a model. It just tries to replicate what goes on. And then we're saying that model is actually what nature does. That's fascinating. I've never thought of it this way. So
yeah, and that's, training models, things like that. It's quite amazing that I think we as a broader set of technologists are going to, just like anything, we're going to misuse or misunderstand how to implement things early on. So the folks that are doing work in quantum are very attuned to what it can do. Then what
loads are they putting on quantum today? What are the things that they actually are running on there?
Well, definitely, we're seeing a lot of things, just mass amounts of data. Imagine
what kind of data?
I think like the most folks that I've heard of, and I haven't been as close to some of the practical uses today, it's truly just like understanding, be able to use like incredible mathematic algorithms and move them at incredible pace, which ultimately means that using things like data for drug trials, so pharmaceuticals are starting to investigate that, and I think, because look at the duration of trials and then the duration of the research that comes from those, and actually turning that into, something that can be meaningful, and to be able to shorten that cycle. I don't necessarily know that it's going to be as good as we think, because as fast as we learn, we may also learn that we've made some mistakes. But so that's one practical use. I know an industry that's obviously using it. Finance will be obviously digging into anything they can do to accelerate the way that they can, enhance capitalism. I'm a capitalist at heart, so I'm not unproud of the fact that I do believe that we can be have an incredible social net to be able to make sure that people can have what they need, and give it to where they can't. But we also have to power that with sort of that part of the ecosystem, which is. And that's always an interesting thing too, right? Using it for moral good. And I think that's also, as data unlocks an understanding of human behavior, we have to think, how do we use this in a way that can be, moral and good, because times change slowly, people change slowly. And having sudden realization of how it goes, it's interesting. Penn Jillette, who of course we're in Las Vegas, Penn and Teller, the famous magician pair, he says two things are invariably true. One is that the world is getting better, and two is that everybody believes it's getting worse.
I thought we were gonna go off the magic now. I always love the thought. Someone said that emotion and magic are very close to each other. So if we give them something magical, then they're gonna like it. What comes into play to me is when I do machine learning, how are values associated with this, and how do I teach? Do I teach models of value and so forth? What's your take on that? How do you keep machine learning, AI ethical, value based, and so forth?
That's a great question, and I think that's really what it is. Is we're artificial. The problem with artificial intelligence is it's powered by human intelligence, and it's using that as the base of learning. So, like I said, in the same way that we can accelerate amazing things, we can also accelerate the understanding of negative things that are happening today. How do we train a perfect machine? And that's why people always fear this sort of like Terminator-like thing, that it will eventually, the machines will take over, because they'll realize that we are the weakest of the ones, that the creators aren't the ones we need to keep. That's where we're in a really difficult spot, and I don't know how long it's going to take us to be able to separate what could be and what can't be. At another conference I was at, they talked about a financial company, and they had trained their call center bot. So it was a human voice powering this call center. It was completely powered by AI and ML, and they said they turned it on for the first time, and they all sat around listening to the call, like the way we sat and watched Kasparov play, the first chess game against Watson. And they said they listened at the end of the call. It went through, and the person had this incredible interaction. And at the very end, the machine says, "Is there anything else I can help you with today?" And the person said, "No, but thank you for asking. It's so nice to talk to a human for a change." And
that's amazing.
But they said they all it's that moment where they stopped. They said literally, they looked at each other. Like when we watched AlphaGo and it made the move, they're like, this didn't make sense. How did it do that? And they said they never taught it to ask, is there anything else I can do for you today? But it learned from listening to thousands upon thousands of calls that led to a positive interaction on the other side of that statement. So that's
amazing.
But like you said, we're training it with data that we may not be proud of.
That's awesome.
So
I want to close out. You said you love talking about customer stories. I'd love to hear a customer story that you really find super interesting, super relevant for people that watch the show. What would be a great customer story you want to share?
Yeah, definitely. There's so many, and I think the customer service and the customer engagement side of the world is really good. Is being able to bring people more rapidly to success. Finance is one of the most impactful, and while we are concerned sometimes about finance getting better at being making more money, the fact that it's now unlocking creating finance for those who don't, or what they call it, unbanked, right? Those who don't have access to a bank account. And you look at what Apple is doing and those types of things. I've got most of the financial institutions are using our platform today, and hearing how we can accelerate what they're doing and deliver a better customer experience for them because of what we're able to do. And then that means that they ultimately can concentrate on what matters to people that are walking on the streets along with us. And so can we suddenly have somebody get access to money that they couldn't in the past, and maybe they're going to be the next small business that could become a new startup that could empower somebody else. So those are the finance industry and the healthcare industry are the two that I love the most, because they have such an enabling factor. And just to be able to say that literally through the power of technology that we can change and impact human life on a day-to-day basis. And it's pretty powerful to watch. We lose track of it, and it sounds very large sometimes. So I like to hone in on the individual ones. That's why you see people.
What's an individual one you'd like to share?
Well, just very literally, somebody who had not had access to finance, and through time and time again had sort of looked for opportunities to be able to create a business. And because we had created a system of banking that didn't open those doors as well, being able to see that through through now that the bank is able to suddenly believe in what could be done by bringing more people in with a particular profile. And so as much as we are concerned about the profile of a customer being such a driver of how they engage with you, it now suddenly says your credit score is not the only thing that we care about. There was more to it. And to see somebody who 2 years in had started their own business and now was employing 35 people, whereas they would have been turned back. Yeah. And I won't mention names, only just because I wish them the greatest success, and it's always that one. I need to have more like direct, like nameable customer stories. It's but so coming from finance, in working in the finance industry myself, I saw a lot more of it, and I just find those startups so powerful, because most of them don't make it, sadly. But the fact that you've unlocked that power to somebody that they can try. That's pretty incredible for me.
Well, I think this is what, for me, the cloud in so many ways is. It's access to more people, to compute power, and to technology in general, just really at your fingertips. For sure. Even though it might be up in the cloud, it's actually right there for us to have it. So let me close with the question of the interview, I guess. Is there something else I can help you with?
Just keep looking ahead and keep sharing the stories. It's and anybody that looks to what's going on, you are in a unique position to many, where you're very much attuned to what's coming, and having such a good, the way you speak with people and listen so well. That's what I love about listening to content that comes from that place. So, folks, go find, the opportunity to listen to podcasts. And we talked before, so this will become a podcast now. You're going to see more and more, which is great.
Too.
So being able to do that, that's what's great. I think people are really learning. And so, keep learning. Always
learning. There's a YouTube show I watch for my personal stuff, and his tagline is, and today you will learn something. And even though I don't say that, if that comes out of today and my interaction with you, that'd be great. So
absolutely.
Thanks for the talk. I really appreciate it. And with that, there is another coffee chat coming to an end. If you missed any of today's show, any past shows, please search for our playlist on YouTube, or now on many of your favorite podcast aggregators. And with that, I'll say thank you for watching and have a great day.